A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back after lunch. I'm sorry for the slight delay that we have in proceedings today, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Boon Dialogue at the Public Policy Forum and Public Policy Literature Festival organized by Scotch in collaboration with various organizations. This panel is being supported by India Water Foundation, and we have Dr. Arvind Kumar of the India Water Foundation with us today. I'm quickly going to introduce everyone who's seated on the dais at the moment. There's Dr. M. Ramachandran, who's author and former secretary, Urban Development, Government of India. He's also Distinguished Fellow of Scotch Development Foundation. Dr. Ramachandran holds a PhD and MPhil in Economic Planning from the United Kingdom, and he formerly served as Urban Development Secretary to Government of India. He handled several national and international assignments during his service. He has been author of various books, most recently including Mavericks of Mussoorie. Formerly, he has written an alternative approach to project planning and public works in the Indian context, urban renewal and policy response, and various other books. He's a bureaucrat and a career civil servant with a wide breadth and depth of experience. Mr. UP Singh, who's going to be our Jai Hind keynote speaker for the day, as well as the chair of the Integrated Water Policy Panel, shall be joining us shortly. We also have our moderator for the panel, Dr. Arvind Kumar, who's president of the India Water Foundation with us. He's an author, a columnist, and his work specializes in the ecosystem-based adaptation, water, energy, food nexus with a specific emphasis on interlinkages between water, environment, and sustainable development goals. He holds a PhD in defense studies, and he's a renowned political commentator, and he frequently contributes articles on contemporary political and socio-economic issues. We have Mr. G. Ashok Kumar with us. He's the managing director of the National Water Mission. He's a 1991 batch IAS officer. He's earlier served at the center as joint secretary in the Ministry of Civil Aviation. He was a winner of the Telangana Excellence Award in 2018 and Jal Mitra Award in 2002. He has initiated and completed many infrastructure projects like the Outer Ring Road Krishna Phase 2 drinking water pipeline and the Godavari drinking water pipeline project. We have Dr. Sanjay Bajpai with us. He's head of the technology mission at the Department of Science and Technology. Dr. Bajpai is in his role, he coordinates the department's initiatives for clean energy. He helps plan and implement as well as monitor the department's foray into the area of clean energy. He's responsible for the national initiative of clean energy as well as shaping several major bilateral programs with the United States and the United Kingdom in the areas of solar energy and energy storage and energy efficiency. He holds a PhD from the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and I must say it's a fantastic panel because we have such sectoral experts who focus specifically on water, and it's going to be an interesting discussion to hear about an integrated water policy. We have Dr. Ritesh Kumar with us. He's Director South Asia at Wetlands International. Dr. Kumar has been a key advisor to the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change and several other governments on policy and management aspects of wetlands. In the last 2 decades, he has led integrated management planning for several wetlands in the South Asia region and coordinated multidisciplinary projects on wetland assessment, ecosystem services evaluation, water management, and sustainable livelihoods. We also will be expecting Mr. UP Singh shortly, and that is when he'll be delivering his Jai Hind keynote. But firstly and foremost, may I please invite Dr. M. Ramachandran to deliver his talk on water and sanitation imperatives for India. If you'd like to sit, that's absolutely fine, sir.
Thank you, Rohan, for that introduction. I too was waiting for the keynote, but keynote may take some time. So till then, I'll try to hold on to one part of the what should be a keynote, which is the urban part. I mean, water should be seen as a whole for the country, and I suppose the keynote speaker will be referring to the water policy and what all it entails as far as better utilization of water, conservation of water is concerned. Now, with my experience in the urban sector, what I'd like to briefly state at this beginning stage is even after all these years of planning and taking up drinking water related arrangements for our cities, I still do not know whether we have an account of how many cities and towns have assured hours of water supply. Number one. Number two, do our cities and towns take note of the requirements of water for the next coming years, whatever number of years, and is it tied up as far as the availability of water is concerned? Third, the wastage of water. I narrated this instance in the morning, and I'll do it once again. Some 10 years back, when I traveled to a city or a town in Kerala, I was asking the municipal officials, what is the wastage level of water in your city? They had no clue about that because the municipal corporation officials do not deal with water supply, though it is one among the 18 items listed for action by the local bodies, because that detail would be available with the water board or water and sewage board, whatever it is. So we have truncated the sector of water, even as far as cities are concerned, into so many segments that there is no information available. And that relates to the point discussed in the morning about the need for availability of data and planning or public policy making being on the basis of availability of data. There are any number of projects, Ashok may confirm. 10 years back also it used to be a scenario that private participation used to be welcome as far as the water sector is concerned, and they used to ask for data relating to the city's water supply, and that could not easily be made available. So what sort of a participation can happen? Then one talked about public-private participation as far as the urban water sector is concerned. Some beginnings were made, but they did not really lead up to a situation where good participation by the private sector can happen, and then fundamental issues came up. Water is an essential requirement, whether it can be entrusted to the private sector, and things like that. So about the functioning of water boards, I don't think the situation is very clear uniformly across the country. I mentioned about the wastage of water. There are other issues like water tariff and things like that. But most important still is equitable access to water for everyone. That does not seem to be, again, a priority. I don't know whether in the new scheme of things, what the Prime Minister has launched as a mission, these will really get addressed. When I pose this question, if we have 4,000 plus cities and towns, will we be able to address these fundamentals as far as these cities and towns are concerned, at least in the immediate future? If you have to wait for 10 years, 15 years for water to become available according to the per capita person concept, that's not the right way of doing things. And there I appreciate the beginning made as far as housing for all is concerned. At least there is a hope that everyone who is houseless can hope to get a house by the year 2022. What about access to water for every family in a city? It equally well applies to the rural areas also. I have no dispute on that. But rural areas, people are used to suffering more because water may get transported over a longer distance. There is no guarantee as to when water will become available and what is the real source from where an next village is supposed to be provided with water. So there are these fundamentals. I do hope these would get addressed in the scheme of things which have been envisaged. When Amrit was formulated, it talked about water connection, pipe to water connection for each household, and also waste disposal arrangement for each household. I think that is still a dream because Amrit does not really reach out to all cities and towns. So that itself is a question mark there, whether when will we succeed in reaching out to all cities and towns. Then will water management be entrusted to the local bodies? Will that be the right way of doing things? Or will it continue to be, pardon my saying, a bureaucratic system only, where the water authority sits somewhere in the capital of the state and then everything is controlled or regulated from there? People at the ground level are not aware of what the issues are. I was pleasantly surprised, again, Ashok is a colleague, that's why I keep referring to him as Ashok. Hyderabad, I think there are certain parts of Hyderabad where water becomes available. The essential drinking water becomes available once in 2 days or so.
We made it for every day. Now it come back to once in 3 days.
Once in 3 days. I was again surprised. I was in Bangalore a couple of days back. There are areas in Bangalore where water becomes available only on alternate days. I mean, these are all given situations. When will we be able to get out of this? Because these are all some of the fundamental requirements. There was a huge lobby which advocated water as a right. I think the governmental system resisted that because it's very difficult to guarantee that water will be made available to each and every person according to the requirement. We have not reached that stage. So there is something fundamentally wrong as far as the planning of water for cities and towns is concerned. And then we are talking about reducing wastage, conserving water, making better use of the water which becomes available. Again, I think in the old composite state of Andhra Pradesh, water used to be transported over 150 kilometers and things like that. Then at one stage we talked about seawater getting converted, desalination. I don't think it has really succeeded, or it's an expensive proposition. So we have to look at the availability of water as a whole and how its use is to be regulated. I'm sure irrigation and things like that take first priority, but drinking water is naturally a priority. So these concerns with regard to the residents in urban areas, how will those get addressed in an appropriate manner whereby a certain assured availability is there for each family or household by a certain period in time? That, I think, would be a matter of big concern. I'll just leave it at this, Rohan, for the discussions to continue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramachandran, for your talk. While Mr. UP Singh is a few minutes away, I think he can join midway, and I think we should commence this panel. We have the moderator, Dr. Arvind Kumar, with us, and as and when Mr. UP Singh arrives, he can partake and also deliver his Jai Hind keynote. I hereby declare the panel open. Dr. Arvind Kumar, would you like to?
Dr. Ramachandran, distinguished friends, I welcome you all to this Boon dialogue. This is lined with the call of our Prime Minister for an integrated approach to address the current water scenario to support the need of the 1.3 billion people. India is posed to play a major role in Committee of Nation in the 21st century. But taking a look at the magnitude of water crisis, we see imbalances between the availability and demand and population growth, rapid socio-economic growth, climate change and disasters. All these issues being water issues to the fore, clearly our country need an integrated national water policy plan that encompasses demand supply side issues such as water security, water equality, disaster management. National Water Policy of 1987, reviewed and updated in 2002, and again in 2012, still treats water as an economic good, and economic principles guiding water pricing, water planning and allocation. This would lead to compromising on several objectives, including equality, social justice, and water for environment. I believe water is a socio-economic connector, development indicator, and a key component of sustainable development. As water forms a significant component in the wetlands, groundwaters, agriculture, science and technology, interlinkages of water and with other relevant policies such as wetland rules and guidelines, Science and Innovation and Technology 2013 policy, agriculture policy need to be highlighted so that all these policies have compatible provisions can be interpreted harmoniously with each other. Why can't we have an integrated approach incorporating transversal shifts, interlinking vertical linkages between water, food, energy, nexus, and horizontal linkages indicates health, education, agriculture, entrepreneurship, gender, etc. The need is not just to meet ambitious national development targets and regional cooperation goals, but also to meet the regional aspirations of the states by turning it into a mass movement. States like Meghalaya is the first state to have a water policy to achieve sustainable development management and use of water resource with help of community participation through the constitution of Water Sanitation Village Council at the village level for smooth implementation of the policy. If we have to bridge the gap between demand and supply, different technology like micro or drip irrigation, shifting water use efficiency from 3R to 9R principles, strengthening ecosystem services, wetlands, forest, innovative scientific technologies and information sharing be employed towards water conservation and augmentation, along with biodiversity conservation. Whenever we talk about climate volatility, we also mean water volatility, water availability and quality is a gateway to fulfill the provisions of SDGs like health and well-being, no poverty and hunger, clean energy, sustainable cities and climate change, which largely remains compartmentalized. The scope of policy must encompass from no poverty to last mile delivery, as integrated water policy must be weighed against efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. If India has to realize its 24/7 water vision and also Sustainable Development Goals 2030, the last decade for action. Today, gathering for the Boon Dialogue sets the right platform to discuss mandate for such policy and find answer to the prevailing questions. How can an integrated national water policy meet the aspirations of the Jal Shakti Abhiyan mandate to provide tap water to all these households by 2024? The second question, can the assessment of water policy be facilitated against these criteria, effectiveness, efficiency, and appropriateness? What can be the possible repercussion on the center-state federalism? The third question, how shall we ensure a cross-disciplinary approach towards water management at the micro level and macro level on a number of policy issues, given the water as a state subject? So present today are the panel of distinguished experts. 4 experts we have, representing various domains with multiple dimensional perspectives. So how can your versatile input, for example, wetlands or science technology or groundwater or center water, contribute to the overall of the water policy, contemplating current water, environment and climate change scenario? So I request you all to share your observations and key insights and opinions given your domain expertise for 5 minutes each. And after the second round, 1 minute you have to, even our audience are expert in their own way. The question answer session will certainly follow up after the panel discussion to hear from you. Thank you. So start from left to right. I think from right to left, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind Kumar, Shri Ramchandran ji, and distinguished panelists and very distinguished audience. I come from Department of Science and Technology, and I will be mainly focusing on what kind of convergence is possible between science, technology, and innovation policy and the water policy as a whole. Water, as we all know, it's a scarce resource, and it has always been said that it has to be managed holistically. There are several competing demands which are a cause of conflict. The nexus issues have been highlighted that water in itself has to be assessed in view of the impact it has on the energy sector, food sector, and health sector, and vice versa. Assessment of water resources does not need to follow the political boundaries of the state. It goes beyond that, it transcends them. So we need to require and prioritize the competing requirements for water. There are generic approaches which have been developed by universally and which are being adopted for water planning at macro scale. However, what we have noticed from our experience is that there has to be customization in the context of the region, and location-specific focus is something which is important. So designing of the solutions for a specific socio-economic context and considering the water hydrology and the water quality is something which is important and which can trigger the market forces to to create those solutions. And of course, the awareness of the stakeholders, enrolling them in the intervention that is a must for the success. If I speak about the science, technology, and innovation policy, it focuses on the capacity building, which is a prerequisite for any activity, including water. Public-private partnership is necessary to take the solutions to the people. And the third key element of the science, technology, innovation policy, which I connect with the water, is the global partnership. We need not reinvent what has been already invented, but the customization and the adaptation in Indian context is necessary. In research, generally excellence is the criteria, but the focus has to be also on the relevance. In the context of the newly conceived this Jal Shakti Abhiyan and newer initiatives which government is taking, we need to have a change in the business as usual approach. As Shri Ramchandran ji has mentioned, that the cities are evolving, and the planning needs to be very robust. In this context, we need to learn from how the countries in the West have taken and tackled that challenge, and towards that aspect, we have tried to evolve a cross-disciplinary program which involves policies, science, particularly in the context of secondary cities, which can evolve suitable policy guidelines. In terms of our Jal Shakti Abhiyan, sustainability of water source is essential, and this science and technology can help in rejuvenation of village ponds, wetlands harnessing, and also surface runoffs. Water use efficiency is another thing which is very important, whether it is in the industrial, municipal, or agricultural sector. And now the newer tools and technologies which are available with us, particularly the sensors and IoT technologies, they can address this aspect, and also the artificial intelligence and IoT technologies which are they can be applied to to improve performance of the utilities in terms of non-revenue water. One major challenge which we are facing is the water quality. Our water quality is no longer the same. We do not have the standard contaminants which we use to treat water for. There are a whole range of emerging contaminants which are coming into the water. There are pharmaceutical compounds, there are endocrine disruptors, and there are several other things for which our conventional water treatment systems are not capable of assessing. So we would need the tools and techniques to assess the quantity of these emerging contaminants. They are in parts per billion or parts per trillion, and so detecting them is not going to be easy. And then treating them is going to be also challenging. So this is again where there are some leads available from the research front, and we need to take them forward. The water quality which is needed, that is also for varies from specific use, and there have been some examples. One is in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh also, where one particular intervention was mounted by Department of Science and Technology, where the water quality for specific use was provided for irrigation, drinking, municipal use, and a balanced intervention was made for a population of around 8,000 people, and this has become sustainable. So both at the research front, while we need to evolve new techniques and technologies, at the same time we need to work on application of the specific solutions. Of course, the water challenges are huge, and sharing of water resources among communities requires addressing several social and managerial issues. Science and technology and innovation, they have limited capability in that regard, but they can definitely help in providing viable and innovative tools which can effectively enable the communities to manage water demand and policy. So towards that, the integration of the innovations or the research which is being done in our research and academic institutions, and connecting them to the users such as the National Water Mission or the Namami Gange Mission, that would be bring the convergence and synergy. Of course, the disciplinary, it has to be cross-disciplinary. Science has to interact more with the social science and also other domains to offer the viable solution. So this is something which I feel that we can have the convergence and synergy amongst different domains to provide, to address the missions which have been conceived now.
Thank you, Dr. Vajpayee. Please, Sunil.
Distinguished delegates and speakers, very good afternoon to all of you. I am Sunil Kumar. I am director in Central Water Commission, which is apex technical organization under Ministry of Jal Shakti, and I am 1997 batch CWEA Central Water Engineering Services officer. I have been working with Central Water Commission in various capacity from last 20 years. Generally speaking, the policy arises from real or perceived problems. Our previous speakers have spoken about the ingredients of ideal national water policy. I'll talk about the existing national water policy, that is National Water Policy 2012, which is already in the effect, and it has been formulated by incorporating all the existing and upcoming problems and also taking the views of various stakeholders, and it consists of a range of issues. I will briefly tell about it so that you can evaluate what is missing in the national water policy and how it can be further upgraded. So it talks about creation of national water framework law. It talks about drinking water, access to drinking water and sanitation, ecological needs of the rivers, impact of climate change on the water resources, benchmarking for various uses, constitution of water resources regulatory authority, and empowering water users associations, removal of disparity between urban and rural water allocation, and community participation in various decision making. And it also talks about application of various state-of-the-art R&D and other technology for managing water resources. How far the questions raised by the Boon dialogue, 3 questions they have raised. The first one is how can integrated water policy meet the aspiration of Jal Shakti Abhiyan? If you see the objective of National Water Policy 2012, it says to take cognizance of the existing problem and suggest various measures, interventions, actions with a unified national perspective. And if you see the objective of Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which is to make water conservation as a Jan Andolan, the objective of Jal Jeevan Mission is to ensure piped water supply to all households by 2024. So I can comfortably say that the objective of National Water Policy 2012 encapsulates the very objectives of these 2 missions. And there are various dedicated paragraphs in the National Water Policy for water conservation, for drinking water supply. It has been considered by National Water Policy 2012, drinking water supply, access to drinking water supply and sanitation as the preemptive need. And it is also suggested a fair and differential pricing for drinking water and sanitation purposes. The second question, which was raised by the Boon dialogue, about the effectiveness, efficiency and appropriateness of the National Water Policy. I'd like to say that this is not the first National Water Policy in effect. We had the first National Water Policy in 1987 and then 2002, and this is the third one, 2012. So we have continuously, the government has continuously upgraded it, revised it, considering the problems, the new problems, new challenges, and government is still very keen to further improve it, and we have already set up one drafting committee under the chairmanship of Dr. Mihir Shah, and they are evaluating various options, various provisions to be incorporated in the National Water Policy vis-a-vis various challenges emerge in these days. regarding the possible repercussion on the central and state federalism. As per the Indian Constitution, under the 7th schedule, entry 56, it is clearly defined the role of center and state regarding management of water resources. All interstate river and river valleys are under the power of central government, and intra-state rivers and river valleys are under the power of state government. So there is no conflict. The position is very clear. But water, there are many conflicting needs, demands emerging up, and for reconciliation of those conflicting demands, we already have Interstate Water Dispute Act, under which so far 9 dispute tribunals have been already constituted for addressing various water conflicts. The third question of the Boon Dialogue is how to tackle the cross-disciplinary aspect of the water resources. For that, the National Water Policy 2012 have dedicated 2 paras, and it envisages that there should be integrated water resources management approach, considering river basin or sub-basin as the unit, and which is also required because India is also a member of United Nations, and United Nations has already adopted this integrated water resources management definition given by Global Water Partnership in 2000, and that is coordinated development and management of water resources at a basin level for equitable, management for equitable, access of the water resources without compromising the vital ecosystem. And lastly, I would like to say that unlike other policies like forest policy is backed by Forest Conservation Act, and they have a regulatory framework which is missing in the case of water resources. We don't have a national regulator, and we don't have any act backing national water policy. So definitely there should be upgradation of national water policy, but we should also have a regulatory framework, or we can think of an act which is backing national water policy. Otherwise, its various provisions cannot be implemented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunil ji. Please, Ashok Kumar.
Greetings to all of you from the National Water Mission. First of all, let me thank the Skoch Foundation for this Bund dialogue. If one of the Bund goes also, it will become a bond dialogue. I hope that that will help us in bonding, because a lot of different disconnected units are there in water. This gave an opportunity to meet Ramendran sir also. We had, he was one of our mentor when I was in the Hyderabad as a Metro Water Board. We started a lot of STPs and daily water supply at that time, and it was under his direction. So I thank you, sir, for meeting here, sir. And there are hearing the previous speakers, I just wondered one basic thing which I thought I would tell you was, we all talk about water, and our focus is primarily on drinking water. This is taking an example from my previous post as Joint Secretary Civil Aviation. I find that the total number of passengers in traveling in air is probably maybe same number of passengers travel in rail in probably 10 days or 1 month. But the focus on aviation is very high. If you have a small plane crashing in Brazil, it comes into the national headlines that plane crashed. Whereas something similar happens to a railway, nobody bothers. It's similar situations here where water, 86 to 87% of water is actually used by agriculture, and 8% is the drinking water, rural and urban water, and some industry water. So our focus has always been on this very, very visible, essential sector of drinking water. And in that process, what happens, we want more and more water coming into the drinking water sector, but unless we manage this 86% of water, which comes in the agriculture sector, you will not be able to get the water for drinking water purpose. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's something in the tail wagging the whole elephant. That's something sort of is there. My request is, as a mission director, National Water Mission, our focus is on a couple of things. One, as sir was mentioning, on the database. We don't have a very integrated database, because we have different units in different states having different units. Somebody says QSEC, somebody takes acreage foot is there, somebody says TMCs. So there is no uniform unit for water also, and there is no uniform database available. WRMS is there, but still there's a lot to be done. So that's one of the missions of the one of the goals of the water mission. And the second very important thing is the conservation and utilization of water in an integrated way by tackling the agriculture side. Probably one of the biggest problem associated with water is, as I said, it is distributed. If I want to write a letter to the state, we don't have a single unit or single person to whom I can write a letter, because each state water is handled by different people. As a water mission, I wanted to say that, okay, sir, please start conservation and all these things. Somebody said you write it to RD ministry in Punjab government. Somebody irrigation department handles water in the Andhra Pradesh government. There's another water authority handles water in Kerala government. So it is all distributed. There's no uniform single contact point to address water as a whole. The integration of water happens when urban water, rural water, agriculture water, industrial water, all are water. That water, somehow, first time this government had come out with the Ministry of Jal Shakti, because they were also handled by different ministries. Ministry of Jal Shakti has at least brought in a sort of simulation. Drinking water and water resources have come in, but still we have a rural department handling Manrega, which is one of the biggest water conservation units. So that's one part of integration which has not taken place. We have, if you look at the water, India has sufficient water available. Even though we say statistically says that 18% of population and only 4% of water available. If we really use water, what is available good for drinking. But our biggest problem is low consciousness of overall scarcity and no economic value for water. पानी तो भगवान की देन है, तो आएगा ही. And the people who has water has absolutely no idea how difficult it is to get the water. And the person in Rajasthan probably who treks 5 kilometers for water, he or she, I have to say he, nahi, she always knows the value of water. But unfortunately, if you look at the Indian average, it's a problem is that urban areas, many of them have water. Some people splurge water. They use water for washing car. They use for watering plants. But the same water is actually drinking for drinking is not available to some of their counterparts in the country. So that's one issue which I feel the main problem with the water is that it is the value of water is not known. People are not. It's not the pricing. I'm not talking about the pricing, but the value of water has to be known to everybody in the city, and that is why probably in this government the water is now become a high priority for the government. Water has to be managed as a common pool, community resources held by the state under public trust doctrine to achieve food security, support livelihood, and ensure equitable and sustainable development for all. This is one of the guidelines given in the water policy. If you look at the water, as I said, water is available if you properly utilize it, you save it. There are, water can be put to multiple use. You can have reuse, you can reduce, reuse and recycle. I found that water, one classic example I can tell you, we found that the water which we use for washing the vegetables can be used for mopping, and then that can be used for putting into the plant. So that's one water used 3 times. So multiple use of water is possible, which you never think about it. We can reduce the water usage. We have, from water mission side, we are working for reducing the water consumption in industries, paper industries, which use bulk of water. Now we have, with a lot of research, science and technology, reduce the water consumption to 50% level. So that's one way. There's a lot of scope for reducing the water. We can, as I said, reuse and then recycle. Recycle policy, national level policy has not come up, but we have to work on that recycle policy. Some state like Gujarat has it. A little bit of on the constitutional part of it. Water is a state subject. Everybody knows it. And it is in the entry 17 of list 2. So everybody washes his hands off. But this is a very important topic which all of us should be concerned. So there should be some central control over it. But as of now, there is no provision in the state government, in the constitution, to have a central water policy. The policy chal raha hai. This article entry 57 of list 1 says about regulation of the inter-water disputes. Basically, the constitutional reference is for sorting out the inter-state water disputes and state issues. Rightly so, because if you look at it, water has to be local, managed at the very local level. But then the people who manage at the local level should have a national concern. This is where two important things, as I said. It is better managed at local level, as Sir has said. Sir said there cannot be a water authority somewhere sitting in the capital and deciding how much water it should have. But when you decentralize, the decentralized person also should have an idea that if I draw water from one aquifer, they can draw from the neighboring water also can come here. It's not that, as somebody was mentioning, there's no boundary for that. So that larger perspective has to be there for the person who draws water. The decentralization also must, and we have to have a fine balance between these two. Last point I would say that about the questions on what Boon dialogue has been answered by Sunil, so I'm not getting into it. But the exercise for the new water policy has begun. We are also facilitating that exercise from the national mission side. Some of the problems with the earlier water policy was that it had no detailed direction for carrying out various measures for implementation of the policy recommended. So that probably would be addressed now. There is a need for emphasis on quality. Now quality, one good thing that is happening in this country now is that the people are aware of quality. Quality conscious have come in, so water quality is a must. And if I can, as a part of the Namami Ganga theme, my ED projects of Namami Ganga, I can very, very proudly say that the quality of Ganga water has really improved. So people are also, because of that, now taking more and more interested in cleaning ensuring that proper water goes there. So it's a positive cycle. If you ensure good water, it's like that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. If everybody put dirt here, everybody will put dirt. But somebody takes it up, that dirt, then the next fellow will think twice to dirty the water. So that type of positive feedback has to come. So this new water policy, I am sure, would address all these issues, the water quality issues, as well as how implementation part of it, and also on the demand side. The last point I'll stop here, because always always used to mention about the supply side management. How much supply water we can more supply. But now it's high time we look at the demand side, and that's where we in Namami Ganga have Water Mission have started something called as a Sahi Fasal. Sahi Fasal is a campaign which we started from Amritsar on 14th of November, nudging farmers to go for crops which use less water. Can you imagine? Punjab is a state, the name itself suggests Punjab. A lot of water should have been available there. Yes, a lot of water was available there. But today's state is, out of 138 blocks, 108 blocks of Punjab are overexploited. Pani bahut niche gaya hai. You know why? They are cultivating. No, they were the Annadata for us. They gave a lot of rice to us. 3% of area providing 20% of rice. That's Punjab and Haryana. But do we require so much of rice? Where is rice going? Rice goes to FCI Godown and gets stopped there. And what actually they are doing is, for every kilo of rice, we require 3,000 to 4,000 liters of water. What they are producing rice and making money for the present generation is actually drawing the water of the future generation. And future, the one in that function on 14th November, when we told them, आपके पोते पोतों को पानी नहीं मिलेंगे. Then they understood. So the Sahi Fasal campaign which we have started, I'm stopping just now. Sahi Fasal campaign which we have started is to ensure or nudge farmers to grow for crops which are less water intensive but use water more efficiently. It could be either micro drip irrigation, micro irrigation, all these things should come in the policy. And which are remunerative. I don't want the farmers to get less money. See, if you get spend for 40,000 rupees and get 20,000, you get a earning of income of 20,000. If you spend 1 lakh rupees and get 80,000, also you get 20,000 rupees again only. So what we require is not the improving the productivity, but actually improving the income of the farmer. That's what I would say. That's why we said that the Sahi Fasal would be nudging farmers to go for a fasal which is Sahi, agronomically correctly, hydrologically correct, and which would give good income for that. Thanks a lot. So I hope that all of you will continue with the Sahi Fasal campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok Kumar. Now, Mr. Ritesh Kumar, please come.
Thank you, Scotch Group. Thank you, Arvind Ji, for starting this important dialogue. Arvind Ji and myself, incidentally, have worked very hard to put in place the recent wetland conservation management, the rules, guidelines, and we hope he will find time to read it. Now, excellent points said on different dimensions of water, but I fundamentally work on a different end of water, which is on the ecosystem end. And what we fail to recognize whenever you will drink water from your bottle, you will ask somebody, where does this water come from? And you know, first is it comes from a tap, and second is somebody can foresightedly say it comes from the dam and the reservoir. Yeah? But we fundamentally forget the fact that water is one commodity. We can clean it, we can purify it, but we can never produce it. It can only be produced by nature. It is product of an ecosystem. And it is this dimension which I find most lacking in much of the policy thinking. You know, any water debate starts with demand-supply gap, starts with water quality issues, your fossil issues. Fundamentally, all of these are important. But is the loss of vital ecosystems not an equal policy problem for water? How many of you know how much of our landscape is under wetlands, for example? Can you please raise your hand if you can tell me how many wetlands do we have in this country? I will not be surprised. I don't find many people, Arvind Ji and myself. We have been losers in this regard. India is blessed with fantastic, sir. We have good friends like you. 7.7 lakh wetlands in this country. And suddenly when you look into water policy, documents, we talk of 800 billion cubic meters of water. Do we actually question where is this water stored? When we say 50% of water is underground, how does that water reach the ground? Through your numerous wetlands. Any fresh water that you drink today is the blessing of a poor wetland which is cleaning the water, recharging the water, storing the water. Today in Delhi, we are tapping our wetlands not only within the limits of our river Yamuna floodplains. Our dams are now built in Himachal Pradesh. Tomorrow it will be the glaciers. In my housing society, when I live in Noida, my water is coming from Ganges. Forget large-scale water transfers. Every housing society is tapping every place. So the situation is fairly critical. But to tell you just quickly, with quick assessments, in last 3 decades alone, 30% of natural wetlands have disappeared from our landscape. Worldwide, wetlands are most rapidly, disappearing landscapes. If you look at cities alone, sir, you began with cities, sir. I was examining the data from urban expansion. From 75, if I look at tier A1 cities, every 1 square kilometer expansion of urban area, built area has meant 25 hectares of wetlands have disappeared. So our development, when we say that water has started flowing from the taps, pipes, we have forgotten the source of water. And that source has started suddenly disappearing. And that is something that any debate on water, any bond or bond should take into account. Now, fundamentally, so what is our suggestion? And Arvindji, you have put a very nice, standee on ecosystem-based adaptation. Ecosystems have to be fundamentally part of the equation of water thinking. And conserving ecosystems has to be a part of the dialogue. Today, it sits between two ministries. Ministry of Environment is entrusted with the role of conserving wetlands. Jal Shakti Mission is entrusted with supplying, ensuring that all of us get water. But without wetlands, how can you think of Jal Shakti? The vision of Jal Shakti would be incomplete until unless we ensure that the natural ecosystems are preserved. Now, whenever I see the dialogue on wetlands, people say, okay, we allocate water for, different things. We can allocate water for drinking. We can allocate water for sanitation. And then, okay, fine enough. Ask us how much water do you need, we will allocate water for wetlands. And this is the most flawed argument that I could ever have. When you prioritize, you say, okay, we prioritize for ecosystems. Ecosystems don't need water. They can produce water on their own, provided you take ecosystems as a part of your decision making. For example, when you need to store water, water is not just stored under big reservoirs, your tanks, your floodplains. These are the places where water naturally stores. Take them into a part of your equation. When you talk about flood prevention, marshes store water. Cities have naturally been protected not only by embankments, which is a modern construction, but by large marshes which were around. Go to Yamuna floodplains and you will understand this function. Look into Chennai. Chennai floods because the central marsh has been occupied by the industrial and IT hubs. Hyderabad is running into scarcity because we have been polluting our wetlands. Several of our cities' dump yards, you say where these are located, Chennai, Calcutta, even Delhi, they are inside a wetland because these are typically a policymaker's wasteland. Land which has no productive use, but tomorrow if water will disappear and if you will start tracking why it disappears, wetland loss will be one of the prime movers. And finally, the problem is not just on the water policymaker side. We as conservationists are also to blame. When we speak about wetlands, sir, we will give you a photograph of species. Sir, this beautiful bird comes into our wetlands, and then the communication snaps. And I think, sir, you raised a very important point. It is about communication. We understand the problem. You understand fossil, I understand wetlands, you understand policy, you understand science and technology, but the language that we bring on board is very different. TMC, BOD, species, all of these languages need to connect somewhere. And I think this is where communication plays an important role. And this is where, Arvindji, I see your role so critical, strategic thinking, wherein you can get all players on board and say, yes, this is our unified vision of water from your ecosystems, from healthy ecosystems to the taps that bring these waters to our homes. And finally, in last 3 months when Prime Minister said like 100 days vision and let us give ideas, from the ministry we said, can we have a program around wetlands? And we said, okay, let's do a scorecard system for wetlands. We chose 9 random parameters and we asked wetland managers throughout this country to assess ecosystem health. It was not surprising, but every 1 out of 4 wetlands we assessed was in poor health. I'll not get into the details, the technical details, but the number is staggering. And if you see, the wetland program in the ministry started in 1985, and till date, what we have reached is a restoration program of around 200 wetlands. Imagine we have 7.7 lakh wetlands, and even if 50% of them require support, required restoration, this number is just not enough. Expecting the ministries, expecting Ministry of Environment, and even for that matter, Ministry of Jal Shakti to be able to create a replicable and scalable model is not going to enough. This is a challenge that the society has to take hands on. It will be a battle which has to be fought at the level of panchayats, at the level of urban local bodies. We have to be conscious of our wetlands. Government alone, central government, these policy papers will not be able to create that, overcome the inertia of acting for conserving water and wetlands. So we'll have to create and rapidly upscale our effort to conserve the primary sources of water. The real Jal Shakti is in wetlands, and that is where I find a lot of friends, even on a Saturday, sitting together with me. It's a pleasant, surprise. Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू वेरी मच रितेश. अभी एक एक मिनट और कुछ भी अगर आपको एड ऑन करना है तो फिर वही राइट टू लेफ्ट आप कर देंगे. कुछ एक आप जैसे 4 लोगों को सुना तो कोई नया थॉट आपके आया है तो एक एक मिनट में उसको बता दीजिए. थैंक यू. उसके बाद फिर हम समाप्त करेंगे.
Yeah, I think what has been presented by all our colleagues, they cover the entire issues that are affecting the water sector. What I would like to pitch in for is the role that science and technology can play again in this entire scenario. See, in the policy formulation, the studies or the research that has been done, that can be a vital input. There have been several white papers, several journal documents which are available, and I would believe that they will add value to the policy formulation. Secondly, the technical innovations which are required, they have also been highlighted. In fact, these kind of technical innovations can very much be fostered by a proper science, technology, and innovation ecosystem. There are several best practices, including the Sahi Fasal. In fact, that was experimented at a location in Rajasthan, and that has yielded very good results. I am happy to note that this has been scaled up, and that was an integrated effort. The nexus issues are something which is very, very important, and I think we need to see the water as a holistic approach. There have been several initiatives in Nexus, but of course all of them are at pilots and laboratory level. Probably through collaboration and synergy they can be scaled up. I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you, sir. I would like to add that it has been widely accepted fact that river can be best managed in the natural boundary, that is river basin or sub-basin. I would like to inform that a river basin management bill is already in the pipeline. Very soon the government will present this bill, which envisages constitution of river basin authority, wherein all party states will manage various issues related to water resources. And I would like to thank Boon platform, because I sincerely believe that they can play a very good bi-directional role by conveying the governmental policies and Jan Andolan to the people, and people's aspirations to the government while formulating various policies. Thank you.
Two, 3 points. One, Ritesh point very well taken, and wearing the other hat which I have, the SED projects of the Namami Ganga, National Mission for Clean Ganga, I can tell you that we have started a lot of projects on this wetland conservation and flood bank prevention conservation, because many of the flood banks, thanks to NGT's very aggressive role these days, they are passing orders to us to even demolish it. Today, if you remember, Cochin, Marad, about 200 flats are being demolished because of the encroachment to wetlands. So there is a lot of judicial support which we get on to the real estate lobby, who used to take a lot of wetland and enclosed. So water mission in the Namami Gange, we have actually taken up a lot of work under this thing. And second, very important thing, as Mr. Arvind was telling, one of the markers, as I said that there is a lot of appreciation on the improved quality of water, but that is BOD, COD and all will measure. But the latest indicator which we now focus is on the availability or the increase in the biodiversity in the water. I can tell you small microorganisms and the mammals and the aquatic life and biodiversity in water is an indication of the quality of water. We recently did Ganga Amantran Yatra from Devaprayag to Ganga Sagar, 2,525 kilometer. Rafting was done from October 8th to November 14th. We were very happy to see so many number of dolphins in the river. We never expected that. We thought the number of, I don't know whether any of you, how many of you are aware, the India National Aquatic Animal is a Ganga dolphin. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. The Ganga dolphin, a poor creature, the number had gone down so drastically because one, एक तो पानी कई जगह पे पानी available नहीं है, and जहाँ पे पानी है is all sewage from the cities, and now because of the intervention which Namami Gange had been taken up, we have now at least 4,000 odd dolphins, and many fishes has come back. So as a what you call as a marker for the quality of water, we are trying to use the microorganisms and the animals in the water. Thank you.
So now question answer session. So please raise hand and with your name and from where your department and all. And question किसके लिए है, कौन से पैनलिस्ट के लिए, वो भी बताएं. स्टार्ट करते हैं हम लोग आपसे.
Sir, I am Ramakrishna, working with Reliance Foundation. Thanks Ashok sir for bringing the attention of the discussion on the agriculture. So primarily 5 major issues are actually plaguing the water security, to achieving the water security. So India is, as all of us are aware, almost India government is providing free power to the grid. These are actually defeating the policy. And the third one, groundwater as common resource. Primarily in the rainfed areas, the farmers and the people access to the groundwater are the large farmers with the rich resources, whereas 80% of the people are resourceless, dependent on the water. So the fifth one, in majority of the projects, even the irrigation as well as agriculture and drinking water, we are focusing on the distribution, but not focusing on the source sustainability. For example, Hyderabad, we are trying to pump water from Godavari, so whereas we are not promoting the water conservation and the rainwater harvesting vision. How these issues are being considered in the upcoming national water policy? Thank you.
You hit the nail on its head when you said actually the problem of agriculture is actually the problem of MSP. It's a political thing which we can say because of MSP, farmers go for paddy because they have an actual procurement and they know that they can bargain more and more prices. MSP is a one major issue, but somebody has to have a political will to take it head on. Actually, there are 34 crops which has MSP. MSP has been declared for 34 crops. If you look at it, but the procurement policies of the government and the pressure of farmers, the procurement is actually only on 2 things, wheat and paddy. And these are the huge water guzzlers, and the third one is sugarcane. These 3 take away 60% or 70% of the water, and the poor millets and all, which use less water, which is more nutritive, we are not taking it. So it requires a big political will, and it is not the water Jal Shakti Ministry to handle it, it is the Agriculture Department to handle it, and the other thing. Second very important thing is, another nexus is the electricity water nexus. Free power. Free power, why should they, in Punjab farmers, when you talk to them, they said, वो सीधा लाइन में लगा के रखा है, जब भी करंट आ जाते हैं पंप करते रहते हैं, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, कोई पानी जाते रहते. Because if you are giving free power to farmers and no incentive for farmers to consume, they will actually pump more water. So water is actually affected by MSP and free power. That's another issue. But now there is a World Bank scheme which is telling the farmers that if you consume less than last year's power, we'll give that money to you. It's a trial basis. It started in Punjab. Probably it will be helpful. The last one, you are talking about the source sustainability of waters. I think that is one thing which we should appear, because I happen to be in the MD when the water from Godavari was brought in. But this was brought in because of one reason, because the other source is Krishna. And Alamatti Dam came and the water source power to Hyderabad reduced, so we had to look at the second source. So we at the city place, the pressure of the population is there to ensure that drinking water is available.
But that is an example, sir. Even for 100 households, we are not focusing on the.
That's I don't. This is something which the local body has, right? It's a decentralized planning has to be done. People has to be told that water has to be used there, recycled there. If you have a decentralized system of STPs, that's another concept which is coming up, where 500 or 1,000 households can build small STP, treat the water and use the water there itself, their bore water will come. This is a new thing which somebody has to take up, decentralized STPs. Why should, abhi kya ho raha hai? All the water is pumped into some big STP somewhere at the end of the city. The 300, 400 MLD STP, MDD STP से हो जाते हैं, वो clean करके वापस यहाँ pump कर देते हैं use करने के लिए. Instead of that, if the households, 100,000 households, one STP, if they use, they'll be better. So thank you.
Why is there no regulatory policy regarding technology adoption within the when you talk about STPs, for example?
There is, no, we actually, we are, from at least from Damamanganga side, we are not looking for any we are not specifying any technology, because it can't be a contractor-driven power program. So what we feel is that technology, we have come out with a model called HAM model, where we say that the concessionaire who builds the STP would build it and operate it for 15 years. So it is their responsibility which
Their responsibility for the water quality?
Yes, water quality. They
For running the
no, water quality. They will be paid only on water quality. They will be paid on the quality of water output.
and who's monitoring this?
Abhi, we are now actually.
Policy of monitoring this?
Now, see, actually it started in last 2 years only. So many of them are in the completion stage. But the agreement says that for the 15 years, monthly payment in Namami Gange will be given by Government of India. That's again a novel thing, but then that's not a sustainable thing, because municipal bodies do not have money to give maintenance. So if you look at it, many of the STPs constructed earlier in Amrit and all were not functioning because electricity was not available.
But there's no regulation also.
Regulation, so we are ensuring that money is given from the central government to the local bodies for 15 years to run the STP based on the water quality output.
My questions is related to
please,
urban water.
your introduction
Yeah,
first,
I am the Dalsuk from Ambuja Cement Foundations, from based at Gujarat in Maharashtra. My questions is related to urban water use. In morning session, there is a lot of talk about the our employment and the, I think Indian economy is deepened in the urbanization good. Would it the urban local governance is accountable and responsible to manage their own the urban requirement? There is also an inequality of use of the particularly the domestic and drinking water used in the rural and urban. Maybe there is also policy related to conservation of water in the urban area. Is it really implemented in the urban area to conserve the water for their captive use?
I can tell you about Ambuja Cement. You have got the award for National Water Mission Award also for conservation of water. In Gujarat, there is a policy of reuse. There's a very interesting policy where they say that any industry start in Gujarat, they have to first explore the possibility of a reused water available. Any STP nearby or any other water source available would be first exhausted. That's the recycled water, it should be exhausted. Then only they will be permitted to dig a bore or to use surface water. That's a very interesting policy. It's implemented. That's a very interesting thing. But maybe that's how they're responsible, and that is why the competition in Gujarat for STPs have gone up. Other places it's not there.
So thank you. Only last two questions. So जल्दी में पूछ लीजिए. पूछिए.
Yeah, but
Hello. Sir, I had question and I have mic. Same question.
Everybody is working in silos. Everything, all these things have been written in the books also. But at the ground level, the awareness which should have been there is completely missing. So we can have a good catchy names like Sahi Fasal or the Har Nal Ko Jal, Har Med Par Ped. But what is exactly happening in the field? For that we need a awareness in the rural populace. That is missing. So sir, what exactly is being done on that aspect?
Okay. So
sir, I also just want to continue with cement as he was talking about. So the entire construction industry, I think, is a major user of water. All right. So a lot of research on use of construction material that take less water is also needed. So while agriculture we are always talking about, but construction material, and along with that is also the road ministry. I mean, every time we say that with agriculture etc. we should talk, because I have seen, sir, our roads are made in such a way that if it rains then the water just stagnates over there. While you see other countries, you know, there are slits made available where, you know, the groundwater, there are these large storage facilities that collect that. None of our roads have those kind of facilities. So potholes, but then you know, this is something so common in other countries. The water is collected. So while we keep talking about shortage of water, this entire rainwater just gets spoiled. So with both the ministries, I think with the road ministry and also the industry ministry as far as construction is concerned. And then one small thing I want to say, sir, I live in Basant Kunj. We don't get tap water inside. So we have large storage tanks inside the ground. And then we use a lot of electricity to pump that water to the top of the building, and that's how it comes in our houses. So yes, we have water, we have access to water. So one resource goes up, but at the cost of a huge consumption of electricity. So I think that must also be seen, how we can increase the access of water without using some other resource to this extent. Thank you.
Madam, the biggest problem is who owns the water. देखो पानी agriculture, see the urban ministry handles the urban water supply and the roads there. Agriculture ministry looks after the agriculture part of it, and we look at the Ministry of Jal Shakti used to look after the dams. As I said before, there should be one agency which should handle water as such. So this problem of addressing, we still don't have any single agency will look after water as a whole. अभी ये तो शुरुआत हुआ है कि Ministry of Jal Shakti में. No, I'm just telling about road में क्या किया था. That's what that part of it. See, there is the drinking water thing which you said. That again, as I said, it is handled by the Urban Development Ministry. So it is उसमें.
I understand, but then these are matters that can be handled.
Yes.
You know, it's not that there is no solution to them. Yes, you know.
एक बात सुन लीजिएगा
ministries.
जो बताया, और अभी हम इसको कर रहे हैं दूसरा प्रोग्राम ऑर्डर ऑफ मेरिट, वो जस्ट स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं. बाकी बातचीत क्वेश्चन आंसर अभी चलता रहेगा. स्टालिन वाले उसमें ऑडिटोरियम में जाएंगे और भी बात होगी. थैंक यू वेरी मच. तो मैं दे रहा हूँ आपको.
in conclusion, and Mr. Ritesh Kumar is right, we got to listen to such a dignified and expert panel today. There is a very beautiful standee here behind me, and it says that Dr. Arvind Kumar has just published in a journal. It is equally important that knowledge be found in classrooms, be found in journals, but it also must be accessible to the public, and which is why this dialogue was a fantastic platform for so many of us to learn so much about India's water future and water security. And I think I must thank each and every one of these panelists here to have partaken in this program today. And thank you also very much to India Water Foundation for organizing the Boon Dialogue with Scotch. Thank you.
Sir.